Infinity Workforce Solutions is proud to announce our Engage event is coming to you this year on your terms. Engage events consist of expertly designed interactive sessions that focus on business outcomes and specific challenges the trucking industry will face rolling into 2021. Topics covered include insurance trends and forecast, expert legal perspectives, future readiness by industry leadership, and risk mitigation into 2021. Specific business outcomes in focus are reducing your liabilities, establishing a first-class culture of safety, and improving communication with your remote employees. It's the fastest way to start preparation for 2021 while meeting with like-minded and strategically focused professionals like yourself. Note that this event is a no-sale zone, no gimmicks, no pitches, and absolutely no selling. As proof, this event provides professional development credits through NATME. So if you're a transportation professional seeking to redefine success at your company and make your job a little bit easier in the process, join us to find out why Infinity is the most referred business in the industry.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to February the 4th, 2021, and thank you, Mr. Jay Womack. Jay has been an industry supporter for many, many years. I've been involved with Jay well over 20 years, and his support for the safety and well-being of our professional driving force has been established for a long time, and we appreciate everything you've done for us, Jay. Later in the event, we will be offering a free 30-day trial. Thank you again for that, Mr. Jay Womack, and I encourage everyone to take Jay up on that offer. So let's get started. Very briefly, Infinity Workforce Solutions is a remote learning platform that can improve your crash frequency. It can improve violations, and more important than that, it can improve the professional drivers. And today we're going to speak specifically about how you can help them with their wellness and their ability to pass a DOT physical. So we've got a lot to cover today. We've got a fantastic speaker from Waterloo, Iowa, who was telling us a few minutes ago they're in a snowstorm up there, but luckily he's not in that snowstorm. Mr. Nick Kuhle, we'll introduce him in a few minutes. So if we can go to the next slide. I want to do a quick introduction for a boot camp, virtual boot camp that we will be conducting February 23 through 26. The focus will be recruiting and retention, specifically directed toward maneuvering and navigating through the driver shortage. Everybody is very well aware of the driver shortage that's out there, and we've got some very good speakers for that, some great information to exchange. So put that on your calendar, February 23 through 26. More information will be coming about that as we go forward. Craig is with us today. Mr. Craig Hart, did you want to comment on our upcoming virtual boot camp?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark. Good morning. This virtual boot camp is the product of feedback that we have received from attendees at our two previous large-scale boot camps. Recruiting and retention remains the number one and number two most significant problems that you all are having to grapple with this year. So we wanted to get some of the best minds together on those subjects to tackle. A great theme that we were talking about with one of them yesterday is modern recruiting in a driver shortage. So that's really what we're going to focus on at that boot camp. But also bigger than that, I almost think we're starting with our recruiting retention information a little bit today with our guest speaker and this topic on fleet fitness and making sure that drivers can pass their DOT physicals. I want everybody on the call today, think a bit broad about how this impacts your fleet. This is not just solely impacting DOT physicals so that drivers can remain with your organization. Nick is going to cover a lot of different pieces of information about improving overall driver wellness that make them better drivers. And better drivers have fewer accidents, have fewer violations. All of these things have a dollar amount attached to them. So think more broadly about how this can be applied to your organization overall, because it's going to, if you put something in place and take advantage of what Nick is going to share today, it is going to have a greater impact than just DOT physicals.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, well, let's get started. Let's get started. If we can go to the next slide. My name again is Mark Rhea. I'm an industry veteran. I've been out there in the field for over 35 years, primarily with Frozen Food Express here in Dallas, Texas, and have experienced multitudes of driver wellness and fleet fitness and issues that are relevant to the driver shortage. And just before we get started, I wanted to make sure that we make the point that the driver shortage issue that was ranked number one again by the American Research Institute for Transportation is this fitness issue, this driver fitness, the ability to pass a DOT physical. Has a direct impact. It is not a indirect. It has a significant impact on the driver shortage, drivers being disqualified because of medical reasons. And we've got joining us today, Mr. Nick Kuhle from Waterloo, Iowa. He's a holistic lifestyle coach, consultant for TSA, the Trucker Services Association, a very large organization that's based out of Iowa and has members throughout the nation. He's a CHEK holistic health practitioner, and he's got a master's in exercise science. So he knows what he's talking about, and we're looking forward to our discussion. If we can go to the next slide, please.
Mark, if I could jump in for just 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Everyone, this is an interactive event, so feel free to open up your chat windows. Also, once you've opened your chat window off your main menu, go down to the bottom where it says "To," click on that and select all panelists and attendees. As Nick is going through his presentation, you're probably going to have questions about things that he brings up. Feel free to ask those in chat so we have the opportunity to ask those of Nick.
Yes, and also we have developed a checklist of the 6 pillars that I don't want to steal the thunder from Mr. Nick Kuhle. He will present it much more professionally than I am, but we have a checklist. If you want that checklist, please get with Lindsay in the chat. Say hello out there on chat, Lindsay, and she will provide you the checklist you can use to distribute to your drivers and get this information out there. So, let's get going. Before we get started into the detail, one of the big issues that I know is the number one disqualifier for our professional drivers that are attempting to get their DOT physicals is blood pressure. Blood pressure. I've seen numerous drivers disqualified because of high blood pressure. So before we get started, I wanted to ask Mr. Nick Kuhle specifically, are you going to be able to present a method or some practices that can help our drivers with their blood pressure? And then Craig, I think we have content. Infinity Workforce has specific content that supplements that we could get out even as early as this afternoon if you're a subscriber or take Mr. Jay Womack up on the free offer. So the question is, can you impact the problem of high blood pressure our drivers have?
Mark, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate that. But to answer your question, it's 100% yes. We can definitely help lower the blood pressure. We know diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, all these are symptoms that people are experiencing that are failing to pass their DOT physicals. But what I want you guys to think about here is I want you guys to take a bigger look at the picture and zoom out a little bit. When they are having high blood pressure, when they are having diabetes or being overweight, That is a direct result of poorly managed lifestyle. So if we can start making small drops into the bucket of health, that's going to naturally just improve their health overall, and their blood pressure is going to come down. I'm going to share with you guys multiple different ways that are literally free to help you guys, your drivers, reduce their blood pressure. I want to give an analogy first though. I have a little plant here. The plant's not doing too hot right now. All plants need water, sunlight, and soil to live a healthy life, and they need a certain amount of them. Have you guys ever bought plants before? Some plants need more sunlight, some need less, some need more water, some don't need as much. This plant, I can't figure out what's going on. I'm going through my mental checklist with it. Us humans are the exact same thing. We need certain aspects, and we need them in a certain balance to create health. And that's what I'm going to share with you on the 6 principles of health moving forward. Next slide, please. So when I talk about taking a holistic approach, I mean that from zooming out, we're going to look at your driver's health from a multitude of different avenues, so to speak. And they're going to fall under the 6 principles, which I will talk about here in a minute. And if you can start applying this to your drivers right away, you're going to see some crazy changes within their health right away. And these are the objectives, of course. And then we know the federal motor carrier their involvement is increasing, and where you guys are losing drivers. So if we can put these small practices into place, you guys are going to keep a lot more drivers on the road, and you're going to retain them for the long haul. Next slide, please. A couple of the big issues that come out with truck drivers and failing to pass their DOT physicals. We talked about blood pressure is number 1, overweight and obesity, diabetes, pre-diabetes. But the thing is, all 3 of these are related. If you're overweight, you're going to be more likely to become diabetic. If you're overweight, your heart's got to pump a heck of a lot harder. Your blood pressure is going to go up. These are all common, but the one point I want to make clear is this is not normal. This is not healthy. These are all symptoms that your truck drivers, and we don't even need to talk about truck drivers right now. Look at society. These are all symptoms that people are living out of balance with the 6 principles that I'm going to talk about. And if you can start managing these 6 principles, health is naturally going to come back to the individual. Health and dis-ease cannot coexist. So if someone is healthy, they're not going to have disease or these issues going on. And if they have these issues going on, they're not going to be healthy. So what we can do is if we can provide the right environment for the individual, health naturally comes back on its own, and we don't have to do the work ourselves. Next slide, please. So I talked about the plant. We as humans, we have 6 principles that we need to live by, and they need to be within balance. And if they're not, that's when we have these ailments arising. So the first one is nutrition, breathing, hydration, sleep, movement, and thinking. Okay. And I want you guys to think about this from the analogy of a spider web. We've all ran into spider webs before. If you touch any part of a spider web, the entire spider web moves and wiggles. You can't touch one part without another area of the spider web not shaking. So my point with this is if you improve nutrition, that's going to have a cascade effect down the line. If you improve breathing, that's going to help out. If you improve hydration, that's going to improve sleeping. That's going to improve breathing. It's going to improve your thinking. So by putting a focus on these 6 and making small droplets into that health bucket, you will see great results in a relatively short time. Next slide, please. So the first principle I want to talk about is nutrition. And Mark Hyman said it best. The solution to your health is at the end of your fork. And I want you to take a step back and just think, like, what are your drivers eating, or what are you eating right now? What are you putting into your mouth? Is it health promoting or is it disease promoting? In my opinion, nutrition is the number 1 reason why people aren't healthy. And if we look at a few stats, it becomes obvious. We have 200 million Americans overweight or obese, 135 million Americans are type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic. 2/3 of adults are on prescription medications. And I know certain prescription medications can fail the DOT requirements, so you can't pass if you're on specific medications. But the best part about this all is 95, I've heard even upwards of 98% of all dis-ease, like disharmony within the body, or even disease within the body, is directly related to diet and lifestyle factors. So if we can start improving on some of those factors, your health of the drivers, the retention of your drivers, and the driver shortage that's not going to be as big of an issue. And you can slowly start keeping more drivers on the road, lowering insurance costs, yada, yada. You guys will find out a few more of that. Next slide, please.
Nick, one of the research documents that we looked at earlier indicated that 34%, 1 out of every 3 commercial drivers, have a disqualifying medical deficiency. So it's a real issue out there for our drivers, and there's obviously a reason that the Federal Motor Carriers Administration mandates a routine physical for that reason. We've got to address this issue within our driver force, and the numbers are overwhelmingly supportive of that.
Yeah, that's a staggering number, being 1/3 of the population of the drivers aren't qualified to drive. Next slide, please. And here's what I want to point out. We talk about the spider web. I'm going to come back and repeat a couple things, guys, throughout this entire this webinar. But if your nutrition is deficient, that's going to directly impact your hormones. If your hormones are deficient, it's going to impact your nervous system. Nervous system's deficient is going to impact your brain. So I want to break this down a little bit. If you're eating poor quality foods all the time, let's just say processed foods for that measure, sugar in itself is going to suppress the immune system. It's going to increase your breathing rate. And pay attention, because when we go into breathing on the next one, you're going to understand when your breathing rate goes up and you're stressed, your hormones, cortisol, which is the stress hormone, that's going to increase, which increases your blood pressure. Okay, so if your nutrition's deficient, that's going to lead to extra stress in the body, which is not going to be beneficial for the drivers. If we want to go down to the brain aspect of things, from poor nutrition, now your brain's going to be deficient. And by deficient, I just mean it's not going to be functioning optimally. You're going to have more brain fog. The mental and emotional clarity is not going to be there. You'll have greater mood swings. And when you're also eating poor foods, do you notice how you tend to gravitate and you're more stressed out and you react instead of being proactive? So by making simple changes with your drivers, if they go to a truck stop and just educating them on, these are the foods that you do not want to eat. These are the very healthy foods. These ones are going to promote health. These ones over here are going to promote disease, obesity, weight gain, diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. So by educating your drivers on what is healthy and what is not healthy, a simple thing like that is going to lead to small droplets in the bucket. And those small droplets are going to lead to greater health of your drivers. And
so specifically on brain deficiency, reaction time is impacted by poor nutrition. Is that a fair statement?
I would say yes, that's a fair statement.
Wow. Okay.
I'd say reaction time and decision making. So if a driver finds himself in a situation where they have to react quickly and correctly, that their diet will impact their ability to do that.
Here's a prime example for you guys. Have you guys ever had a meal and eaten like a big meal, and then you've had to take a nap 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later? I mean, if we want to think about Thanksgiving, that's at least in my family, everyone eats and then they go sit, watch TV and relax. If you're eating food and it's draining energy from you, that is poor quality food. Energy should be uplifting. It should promote energy and promote like mental clarity throughout the day for the next 3 to 4 hours. I want to add in though, it doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to put your drivers on diets. You don't have to force them to go straight like a paleo diet or a ketogenic diet or whatever that may be. Just simply making small substitutes is going to go a long ways, and you're going to keep the drivers, they'll participate in it. because the change isn't too big. So we're going to slowly start stacking small habits on top of one another. Next slide, please.
We need to include our friends at the truck stops to help with a more balanced selection of food sometimes as well.
Absolutely. And that's, they don't have the best selection, but they are getting better. They are getting some fresh fruits and veggies. They have raw nuts and seeds. They have waters. They have beef jerkies. They have some healthier snack options, which are all available at, from what I've seen, all the truck stops I've ever been to. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. The second pillar is breath, breathing. And the reason this is one of the biggest pillars is because on average, we take 25,900 breaths a day, give or take. If you're stressed out, more than likely you're taking a lot more than that. So what I want to ask you guys to do right now, for those that are listening and can do this, can you guys place one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly? I'm going to ask you guys to take 5 big breaths. And I want you to pay attention. Does your chest move? Does your belly move? Do they both move? Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you breathing through your nose? So take 15 seconds and we'll go through this. So it's going to look like this. Beautiful. Thanks, guys. And from my clinical observation, I find very few people that know how to breathe correctly. If you're breathing correctly, you should inhale through the nose. Your belly should expand out first, and then the chest should move. I saw something, my tummy moved. That's awesome. Your tummy should move first. Okay, so your tummy moves out, then your chest, and then you exhale. If you are not breathing that way, you are going to stress your body out more. When you get stressed out, that's when stress hormones are released in the body. When that's released in the body, the blood pressure shoots up. So simply breathing for 10, 15 minutes properly, you can lower your blood pressure. Drivers can do this all day long. If you teach them how to do it correctly, you can get their blood pressure to come down by that alone. A few other things I'll just throw in there. If you're breathing incorrectly, it's going to impair your digestion. It's going to impair your detoxification, muscle repair, removal of waste. And the other thing is lower your immune system, okay? We want to keep drivers on the road. We want to keep them not taking sick days. So by breathing correctly, it's going to improve their immune system, especially in the state that we are in right now with COVID happening. We want a strong immune system. So we know sugar, that lowers the immune system. It increases your breathing rate. We know your breathing rate, if that increases, that's going to lower your immune system. So that spider web is starting to come into play here again. Let's go to the next slide, please. And this is just going to be a few other points of over breathing. And you guys may or may not notice this within your own self, but over breathing is going to lead to musculoskeletal issues. You're going to have achy muscles from a buildup of lactic acid. Many people that I work with have like tension in their neck, their shoulders. They get headaches. That alone can come from breathing. So teaching people how to breathe better is going to lower the stress. The anxiety is going to go away. The muscle aches will go away. You're going to have biochemical issues. Not to go too sciencey, but you get the stress or the fight or flight state versus the rest and relax. Breathing alone can put you into the fight or flight state, or it can put you in the rest and relax state. So teaching drivers how to relax, which is going to make them a lot better driver. They're going to be more attentive, and they're not going to be angry and aggressive on the road if someone cuts them off. We talked about digestive issues, mental and emotional issues, anxiety. We've all been around anxious people. And if you watch anxious people, they're all chest breathers. They breathe through their mouth. So if you know people that are anxious, get them to breathe correctly. That's going to bring down the stress level, bring down the blood pressure. And then we know stress is linked to all major causes of death and disease. Next slide,
Nick,
please.
Nick, could posture have an impact on proper breathing techniques?
Ooh, absolutely, Mark. Hang on 2 minutes. I think in a couple slides we're going to talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Next slide. There we go. This is one of my favorites. This is the easiest way to lower individuals' blood pressure. Mark, I see you doing it already, drinking some water.
Yes, here it is.
You're not sick, you're thirsty. Dr. Batman Geelig, in his book, Your Body's Mini Cries for Water. That's what he states. 100% agree with that. We're composed of approximately 75% of water, but very few people put an emphasis on hydration. Most people think if you're dehydrated, your mouth gets dry. That is like the last sign of dehydration. One thing that you can do right now is if you pinch the back of your skin, it should snap right back into place. If it doesn't snap in and it kind of like hangs out there for a second, you're probably dehydrated. Here's the kicker. Many dehydration symptoms are often treated as hypertension or high blood pressure. Okay, so if we can just get your drivers drinking a little bit more water, that's going to improve their blood pressure. Dehydration can also show up as symptoms like asthma, arthritis, colitis, etc. But the other part that is unfortunate is people take these medications for high blood pressure when they're only dehydrated. Those medications are also going to stress the body out. They're stressful on the liver. The liver has to detoxify them and get them out of the system. So it's almost like a double whammy when you could just get your drivers going from 1 bottle of water to 2 bottles of water and making these small changes. And the other side of the other positive of this is when you drink more water, you're more energized. I work with the client. The first week I worked with her, she was telling me she was literally crawling to her bed because it was less painful than walking. I asked her to increase her water. That alone, she says in the 1 month, she's like, it's unreal how much better I feel. She has not crawled one time. Feels so much better. So increasing water is like one of the simplest things that you can do. Next slide, please. We talked about dehydration. And the other aspect I want to elaborate on a little bit is many of the drinks that drivers are consuming or purchasing from truck stops have dehydrating agents with them. So they're having teas, they're having coffees. Hopefully they're not having alcohol on the road, but I just want to throw that in there because all these are dehydrating agents. So you drink it and you're going to be excreting more water out than you're going to be retaining, which leads to dehydration, which leads to higher blood pressure, which leads to medications, which leads to may or may not passing DOT physicals. And then to tie this all together one more time with the spider web, majority of people confuse thirst for hunger. Their body is thirsty. They confuse it for hunger. So what do? They go grab candy bars. They go grab potato chips or whatever that may be, when all reality, you're just thirsty. So I would challenge you guys to try this out. Next time you're thirsty and next time you're hungry and you just had a meal recently, drink a glass of water. More than likely that hunger is going to go away. So there's another one. Hydration is a big one. Next slide, please. Sleep. A good laugh and a long sleep are the 2 best cures for anything. I will second that one. Just in general, sleep's function is to help recharge your system, accumulate more energy, and repair the body both mentally and physically. I want to point that out, mentally and physically. We all know the difference when we get 5 hours of sleep compared to a full night's rest. Your brain cognition, your mental sharpness is not even close to where it could be at as if you get a full night's sleep. But very few people prioritize sleep in their life. Truck drivers, long haul drivers, it may be a little bit more difficult to do that. But when we optimize maybe the 5 other principles, that's going to help out the sleep because everything's interconnected. It's a spider web. The other issue, let's go to the next slide. I'll talk about it on the next slide. Here are some issues, some concerns, some major concerns that happen if you are getting poor sleep. Gotta get some water in me. First off, it raises cortisol levels. We know cortisol is a stress hormone. We know stress hormone increases the blood pressure. So we got a common theme here going. It causes insulin resistance even after one night. And when they say after one night, they don't mean getting like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. They mean getting 6.5 hours of sleep. That can still cause insulin resistance. We know that is not going to be beneficial overall health, leads to obesity, diabetes. When you get less than about 7 hours of sleep, it's going to automatically trigger in your brain to go out and search for sugary and starchier foods that are commonly not as healthy. So by improving someone's sleep, they're going to be less likely and they're going to make better choices when they are in the truck stops or when they are eating out with friends. Less sleep also increases inflammation. We know chronic inflammation can lead to diabetes. All these things that spider web's coming together. I do want to talk about the sleep stressors. A lot of people don't get quality of sleep because they're having caffeine and sugar. Prime example is this is caffeine. If you go to any truck stop or any grocery store, you're going to be loaded with options of energy drinks. Caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours. Here in Iowa, Bang is a popular energy drink. It has 300 milligrams of caffeine. So if you have a Bang at 12 noon, at 6 p.m., you're still going to have 150 milligrams of caffeine in your system. At midnight, you're still going to have 75 milligrams of caffeine in your system. That's not going to help out the quality of sleep, which is therefore going to impair on the driver's health. So educating drivers on these small things, just so they're more cognizant of it, will help out in the long run. Poor sleep also messes with people's hormones. It dampens their metabolism and their thyroid function so they're not burning as many calories throughout the day. So, and impairs memory and learning, as we talked about. So next slide, please. Mark, here we go. We're going to talk about yours.
Okay.
Pillar 5 is movement.
Now, just as a reminder, if you don't have the checklist, please get on the chat with Lindsay. All of these, we've got a beautiful checklist, and we're on item 5. And I'll tell us about movement.
Excuse me. Here's what I'll say. Your drivers don't need to be going to the gym for 2 hours. That's the last thing that they want to do, and they won't do it. They'll reject it. More than 95% of them will. However, if you can just get them to go for a walk, that alone will have significant positives for the driver's health and the mental clarity. So poor posture has a significant implication on the entire body as a whole. Prime example, we'll show you firsthand. If you do me a favor and you guys can just kind of round forward into like a semi-fetal position. So your shoulders are rounded, your chin's kind of tucked down, rounded back. Take a big breath. Take another big breath. If you notice, what happens is you breathe in your chest. We talked about that with breathing now. So if you're in a poor posture, it's going to naturally force you to breathe in your chest, which is going to signal to the brain that you're in a stressful state, releases cortisol and higher blood pressure. So just by changing the posture up and getting your drivers to sit up, it could be as simple as having your driver set a timer every hour on the hour. They sit up tall, they take 5 deep calming breaths. That alone will have a myriad of positive effects within your driver's mental health. The other aspect is muscle function, joint health, and circulation. So poor posture is going to impact all of those. If you're hunched over, you're not going to be getting the stagnant air out of the lungs, more toxic. and so on. The other part that Mark was talking about, I believe, is your physiology and your psychology mirror one another. So I have personally never seen a depressed person that sits up nice and tall with a smile on their face. It just doesn't happen. You don't see happy people rounded forward. You don't see losers throwing their hands up in the air after a contest. You see winners throwing their hands up in the air in the contest. Psychology and posture directly influence one another. So by changing your driver's posture, it's going to change their breathing. It's going to change their mental and emotional state. It's going to reduce their anger or aggressive behavior, which we know that can lead to more accidents on the road, which can save you guys tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So just changing posture and getting your drivers to go for a walk will be one of the simplest things that you can do to help out your drivers. Next slide, please. Thank you. And the last pillar is thinking. Your body is the report card of your mind by Paul Chek. So here's what I'll say. Your focus goes, where your focus goes, your energy flows. If anyone's ever bought a new vehicle, no one else had that vehicle in the city that you lived in until you bought the vehicle, and then now you see it everywhere. You're more aware of it, so now you start seeing it everywhere. So if you are constantly thinking of negative thoughts, that's where the energy is going to flow. You're always going to have those negative thoughts. We know those negative thoughts are going to change the body posture. It's going to change your breathing. It's going to stress you out. If you're getting stressed out, most people cope with eating poor quality foods to deal with the stress. So if we can change, even making small changes within their thought process, that's going to help out their mental and emotional state of being while they're driving. And we know the ATRI research indicates that drivers with angry, aggressive personality traits are much more likely to be involved in accidents, which is unfortunate. And the next slide, please. So that's awesome. How do you implement this? So here's what I would recommend. If you guys have direct connections with your drivers, figure out what their why is. Get clear on it. Obviously, they want to have a job. So if they're not going to be able to pass their DOT physicals, using that as their why to make some small changes is going to be awesome. And I say that because we need to start with small changes. You can't get someone to go from 0 to 100 overnight. This may take a span of 2-3 months, but getting them to drink more water one day, and then maybe 2 bottles the next week, and then maybe 3 bottles the third week, or instead of having this unhealthy food option at the truck stop, if they switch to this one, they're going to start noticing more energy. They're going to notice better hormones. It's just going to have a cascade effect throughout the entire system. So what I would recommend doing is figure out what their why is, and then slowly start stacking small habits on top of one another. You guys have the checklist. Go through it. If they can check those off, they're already going to be moving in the right direction. And it goes back to the plant. A plant needs water, soil, and sunlight. We need these ones. If you can start getting these into more of a balance within their lifestyle while they're driving, and most of the things I've talked about are free, you're going to see the health changes within your drivers. You won't have as many failing their DOT physical. You'll have a lot more passing them. They're going to be better drivers on the road. They're going to stay calm, cool, and collected. And they won't be the angry, aggressive drivers, which we know lead to more accidents, which is going to save you guys money in the long haul. And with that, Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Wow. Well, nutrition, quit eating the junk food, dehydration, drink the water, breathing, breathe through your nose, get sleep, which is obviously a challenge in our industry, but it's doable. Movement and thinking, those are the 6 pillars. I've got them written down. Craig, now you've done a little research within the Infinity Library. Can you kind of review some opportunities that our clients can cash in on immediately?
Absolutely. One of the things that we need to be cognizant of when we introduce this information to drivers is we can't just tell them, be healthier without giving them a plan or some steps that they can take proactively on their own to be healthier. At the bottom of that slide there, we've got several different courses that are already available in our content library on sleep apnea, rest stop routines in terms of things that drivers could be doing when they're at a rest stop to improve their health. There's a couple different modules on good sleeping habits for truck drivers. There's several on fatigue management, nutrition and health. These are all things that could be assigned out to a driver as part of training to bring up their level of awareness of what you are trying to do with a wellness program. We also have groups that we work with that have acquired third-party wellness content that is able to be featured in the platform as well, so that you can have that record of reporting that people are completing that training so that you can act upon that. I was talking with Mark about this prior to the call. I mean, some of the larger carriers out there have dedicated staff for driver wellness. Their job is to come up with programs to make their drivers healthier so that their drivers are able to pass the physicals, but also they have less accidents, they have less violations. They also have a healthier, more positive frame of mind, which I think is something that we could probably talk more about. A happy driver is one that is less inclined to look for a new job. A happy driver is going to be one that is happy with where they're at. And that is a huge, huge retention problem solver because, Mark, we were talking about this statistic last week, is that if someone is dissatisfied with your organization, they make up their mind very quickly to go look for another job. So helping instill positive attitudes through better health is going to be a beneficial retention tool for your organization, because you are going to have a more a larger workforce with a positive frame of mind working for you. But less accidents, less violations, that's going to be huge. The cost of losing a driver is anywhere between $7,500, $10,000 per driver on average for the industry. Your accidents right now are, simple repairs are in excess of $15,000 and up. If you need to have just side mirror repair, that is no longer a couple $100 fix. If we could make drivers better rested, better fed, more energetic, more clarity in their minds, they're going to behave better on the roads for all of us. And that's really the takeaway I wanted you guys to have today, is that this does not just eat better and lose weight. This is eat better so you can think better and perform better behind the wheel of your trucks, because that's going to impact so many different levels for you all out there. I guess I have a question for you, Nick. If someone is trying to create a program to help their drivers out from scratch, some of the folks on the call with us today have to wear multiple hats in their organization. They're the recruiter and the safety manager at the same time. What are some things that they can do, or some steps that they can put in place very quickly that they can start taking advantage of? I know some of these groups that we have on the call with us today, they manage multiple locations that their drivers go to, multiple terminals across this country. I know some things I was thinking about is, a lot of these have a driver break room, for example, a place where their drivers can stay while their trucks are being serviced, and they have vending machines in those. Is it something as simple as replacing the sodas with more bottles of water in the vending machine, so that becomes a more prevalent option for the drivers? So what are some of those small steps that people can start taking today and communicating out to their team?
Yeah, great question. And like I said, I look at it from three different standpoints. You can either, for the health aspect and nutrition aspect, you can add healthy foods in. So like maybe you want to add in some broccoli or carrots or something else that's healthy. You could take something out. All right, so I'm just going to quit eating candy bars. Or you can make substitutions. I'm a big fan of substitutions because then you're replacing a habit with another habit. So there's companies out there that have really healthy drinks that are very close to, we'll just say pop. Like there's Zevia, Zevia. That's a really good alternative. Spindrift is a very good alternative. It's like a sparkling water that actually tastes good. Have some in my fridge right now. To get started right away, go to the ones that are free. get your drivers drinking more water. That's the simplest things, the lowest hanging fruit. Like I said, have them set a timer on their phone every hour. Take 5 deep breaths into their belly and long exhales. Those little things will be big drops in the bucket once they become habitual.
I don't think the people on the call realize how self-conscious they themselves are now going to be about their breathing habits just in listening to you talk today. I know that Mark and I have spoken with you a couple times, and we've talked privately about how we are absolutely thinking about how we're breathing now. So, and
Craig,
that's really, you have to take that step. You have to become conscious of what you're doing.
And that's the thing. We're bringing things out of the subconscious and into the conscious. And if you can lead by example, it's a heck of a lot easier walking a driver through, be like, hey, this is my experience with it. Just within 3 days of drinking water, I have so much more energy now, rather than just like telling someone to do something. I would recommend leading by example.
Excellent. Excellent.
So let's go to the next slide. Coaching appears to be what is in demand and what can help with this. And Nick, you do that. Tell us a little bit about your coaching practice.
Yeah, so with my coaching practice, I have assessments that I give to my clients that tracks their overall health. It tracks their stress levels. And when you can give someone like objective measures and they can see that they're making progress from just like little changes, that's when you get them hook, line, and sinker. And that's beautiful, because then they're going to start becoming healthier individuals. So I work with my clients. We work on a daily or a weekly basis. We address any challenges that they have throughout their course of their putting these healthier practices into place. Let's be real. It's not easy becoming healthy in today's society. If you look around, we have marketings everywhere. People are saying, buy this food, eat this food. So to go back, yes, I work with individuals on a weekly basis to help them out and move them forward.
Fantastic. And Craig, we clearly have content that can help the listening audience get this information to the field as quickly as this afternoon. If they will, if they need the free trial, we could set them up with a customer, a client success representative, and literally get this information out this afternoon. Is that true?
That's correct. That's correct. And one question that came in from Kelly in the audience, and I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit. She's asking about the frequency with which wellness training, wellness preparedness should take place. She says right now is that she's got a monthly program addressing healthy eating, exercise, restful sleep. Should she be looking at something like a weekly program to deliver this information?
Personally, I would say weekly, just for the mere fact that you ask someone to do something, you're checking in with them a month later. It's real simple to get motivated for 2-3 days and then slowly start falling off. Where if you can start reaching out to them, whether it's like you just sending out a quick little email, hey, how's everything going? Are you sticking with the plan? Are you substituting things out? You're going to have a lot more buy-in, and they're going to be able to stick to it for the long haul.
I agree with that. I mean, we see that in the training that we do, that more frequently is quicker for adoption, and you have a higher participation rate because it like healthy living becomes habitual. So,
and that's the thing. If you just stack small little habits, like it doesn't have to be a long 30-minute conversations. Hey, did you get your 4 bottles of water today? Or hey, did you get your 2 bottles of water? Did you substitute out coffee for this drink? Like little small things, and just keeping it on the forefront of their mind is going to do miracles.
And I don't think there's anybody on this call that for the price of a couple 24-bottle packs of water would rather buy water than have to replace a driver if you're able to make a positive effect and a positive change. Certainly the tremendous cost savings there versus $10,000 to just replace a driver versus a 24-pack bottle of water, making sure that they're staying hydrated with the correct beverages throughout the day. I know that that's a challenge because, the drivers don't want to stop at the rest area to go to the bathroom if they don't have to, but it's almost kind of mental argument that they're making with themselves is like, I don't want to drink more water. That'll make me go to the bathroom. I'm just going to drink more coffee and tea instead. And it's like, oh, you're doing that thing that you said you didn't want to do already. You're just doing it without water. So
Absolutely.
I think
Yes,
there's
that
a tremendous
be
room for improvement here.
that would be a pretty easy return on investment calculation. So,
Yeah.
well, we've had a as I anticipated, an outstanding presentation. I think, do we have a poll, Colin, that we can, if people are interested in the upcoming boot camp that's scheduled, that we're going to go over recruiting issues. We're going to go over, we got fantastic speaker, Mr. Dan Baker, on driver retention. We got Jeremy Reimer. We've got women in trucking. If you would like to participate in that, just answer yes to question 1. If you'd like to take Mr. Jay Womack up on his complimentary 30-day free trial that he offered at the beginning of our session, just check a yes. And if you want to talk to Nick, which I would certainly encourage, because all this information is great, but getting it into practice is the challenge. He specializes in truck drivers. He does a lot of work with Trucker Services Association that I'm very familiar with. They speak very highly of him. Click yes, and we will get in touch with Mr. Nick. So those are the 3 closing questions that we've got. I'm going to drink more water, and I'm going to be a little more conscientious of my breathing and my posture. So I appreciate that. It's an important issue in our industry. Nick, thank you very much. I hope it stops snowing sooner or later in Waterloo, Iowa. Craig, any last minute comments on the upcoming boot camp we've got?
Yes.
The checklist, please. We got there you go.
Everyone, again, you're invited to attend our boot camp that is coming up the end of this month, the 23rd through the 26th. This is all about looking ahead at recruiting in a driver shortage. What are the things that you are not doing that you need to be implementing into your program when we're looking at recruiting and retention? Today's webinar was a great example of that. There is no one solution that is going to solve your driver recruiting and driver retention challenges. If you have multiple weapons in your arsenal, and this is all about gathering multiple arrows for your quiver, this is going to give you so much more leverage to make a positive change in your organization. So please join us for the event. We'd love to have you. This is our 3rd. They've all been excellent so far. We expect this one to be the best of the bunch.
Fantastic. We're at the end of our scheduled time frame. It's been a most enlightening information exchange with Mr. Nick Kuhle, and we look forward to seeing everyone in February 23, 26. Have a fantastic close to February the 4th, 2021. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.